Do it. All right. Give me just a minute. I need to prepare my live stream. All right. Get this link. All right. It looks like we're streaming here. That's good. Uh, all right. So this is, I'm going off script a little bit. This is going to be a little bit unusual of a presentation because, as we all know, Microsoft Teams is terrible at presenting multimedia. And the topic that I want to present to the group today is a multimedia presentation on something that multiple things that I'm actually passionate about that goes from creativity and creating an art and expression, computer science, retro computing, mixing it all together, and it turns into something really cool that I think very few of you might know about. It's a computer subculture known as the Demoscene. So I'm going to be giving you a link briefly to the YouTube live stream that will allow me to send you, all of the multimedia that I have prepared for you. Now, these demonstrations I'm going to be presenting are running in real time on emulated systems. I thought it would be cool to, get a real Commodore 64 and a real late 90s or early 2000s computer to run these demos, but I'm going to do this emulated because that makes it a little bit easier than doing video capture and setting up a lab of retro gear. But I have all this stuff ready to go. This is going to be a little bit maybe hit and miss, as I've never really done streaming before, and I have a lot of different applications to try to stream to you. So bear with me. There's going to be a lag when you join the video stream compared to what we have here in Teams. So I'm going to mute myself on the Team side once we move over to YouTube, and it's like a 5 or 10 second lag between what I say and what you're actually going to experience. But before we switch over there, I'm already streaming live at the moment, so you'll be able to look back on this or catch up. But I want to start off by talking about the Commodore 64. The Commodore 64 is a system that is considered to be the best-selling personal computer of all time. The numbers are wildly unknown, down to a point, but it's something in the vicinity of 30 million of them were sold between 1982 and I think 1991, when Commodore the company went bankrupt. Now, it's a very personally affectionate computer to me. It was my first computer that I received when I was 8 years old as a hand-me-down from my grandparents, who themselves got it as a hand-me-down from my aunt. So it is the original system. I still have this thing. And I like the system so much that if you came into my office, you would see that I have a Commodore chip hanging framed on my wall that was manufactured the week after I was born. So I have a lot of affection for this system. Now, this is actually where our story begins for today's topic. Back when computers, were first becoming popular and software is being published for them. Oh yeah, the VIC-20 that came before the Commodore 64 for sure. Um, Software protection has been a big question. How do you prevent software piracy? Well, there are a lot of ways you could do that, and some of that was related to putting special protections on the floppy disk or special calculations that need to be performed that would unlock the software. But as is the case today, there were people that were cracking the software. And what they would do when they cracked the software and then distributed it, not on the internet or BBSs necessarily, but actually on floppy disk, they would hand it around and people would copy it, and then they'd copy it and you'd have this exponential expansion effect. Most of the software I played as a kid was cracked, right? There wasn't legal copies. It was copies of copies. And at the beginning of any given game, there was a signature of the hacker who cracked it. Or they would call them crackers, people who crack software. And originally, these were pretty simple signatures, and they called them introductions or intros. And you'll see in a minute that there was a little bit of a one-upmanship that led to increasingly complex intros. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the live stream here. We're going to switch over to the live stream, and hopefully this all works. So everyone go ahead and join up over there. Okay. All right, so what we're looking at here is an emulation of the Commodore 64. Pretty basic screen. In fact, it is Commodore Basic. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate some simple early intros. Here's a game called Crackout, which is very much like Breakout, a little brick busting game. And you'll see that it's quite simple, the introduction that this particular cracker put on. Is it running? There we go. Okay. So here's a really simple introduction, right? Just a scrolling text with a little bit of a graphical, intrigue. You've got the flowing kind of gradation. That rapidly kind of got more complex until you ended up with things that look more like this. This is a crack for Crackout version 4, and you can see that it's a little bit more intriguing, right? You've got wiggling effects, you've got scrolling in multiple directions, you might have a lot of compounded effects at the same time. Now, what Crackers ended up doing is making an entire culture out of stretching the machine's capabilities, or even going beyond what the machine was designed to be able to do. And this was really the birth of the demo scene, where intros were no longer really the main goal, trying to crack software, but actually just make something that was extremely impressive and broke the rules. And you ended up with teams and parties that organized around being able to make the most creative, impressive thing. So let me briefly pause my view here. So let's talk a little bit about the demo scene. My history in the demo scene goes back to about 1996 when I first got exposed to something called mod tracked music. And I listened to a lot of this mod music up through the current day. So it's been a long interest going on 30 years, I can't believe, of listening to mods. And little did I know at the time that a lot of that music actually came from the demo scene and was background music for demos. And it followed me up until when I was actually in college in computer science, and I was the president of the ACM, the student chapter of the ACM. I always showed at least one demo at the beginning of every meeting as we marveled at the kinds of art and computer science rigor that went into the creation of these incredible pieces. So some of the things that you're going to see is I want you to pay attention to. These are real-time rendered, right? These are not videos that are pre-rendered and you don't create a video MP4 file or something. These are live rendered on the actual limitations of the system itself. So with the Commodore 64, you're directly accessing the hardware to create these effects, or on a Windows computer, you're interacting potentially with DirectX. But the key is that these are live rendered. And in some cases, the audio itself is live rendered. And that's similar to the way mods work, they're live rendered for small space. And in other cases, they actually create a synthesizer for the demo, and the demo plays its own synthesizer, which makes it so that it saves a heck of a lot of space, or it gives you some unique effects. And I have a demo to show what's possible with that. So basically, the demo scene is intended for demo groups or individuals to show off their technical skill, to show off their algorithms and mathematical skill, programming skill particularly, and show off your knowledge of a hardware platform and stretch it way beyond its design limits, which is particularly the case for old-style hardware where you actually have access to the hardware, unlike today where it's pretty abstracted. It also allows you to exercise storytelling, graphics creation, and music composition. Some of my favorite groups of demo creators they call them demo groups, and my favorites, and you'll see some of these, are Fairlight, Conspiracy, LFT, ASD, Farbrausch, and there's kind of a formula when it comes to modern demos. You'll see that they advertise who they are, much like an intro would do. They play their demo, which is all of these impressive technical feats. And then at the end, they frequently have a kind of a call out where they list their favorite demo groups that inspire them or they're friends with. Now, what do you do with these demos? Like they've got to get presented somewhere. And that's where demo parties come into play. Now, the demo scene and demo parties are really common in Europe. Most of these occur there. There was one in the United States that happened a few times that was sponsored by NVIDIA in California, known as NV Scene. And some really great demos came out of that demo party. But some of my favorites that I follow from afar include Breakpoint, Assembly, The Gathering, Evoke, Function, and one of the demo groups typically makes an invitation inviting people to attend the demo party. So we're going to see that in just a second. But to give you an idea of how big a demo party can be, I just want to show you. This is a picture. Oh, wow, that didn't work. Hang on a second. Let's see where my screen is here. Technical difficulties. The screen share is not working. Give me just a minute. I understand why. Okay. All right, hopefully that doesn't happen again. Yeah, I tested all of this pretty extensively, but technical glitches will always occur. All right, so this is a picture of an assembly demo party. There are thousands of people in here with computers set up in this enormous auditorium, huge big screen for showing the demos, enormous sound systems, because this is really a performance, right? And at these at these demo scene parties, there are all kinds of competitions that occur within them. So, for example, there might be still graphics competitions where people are showing off still graphics they made, maybe a pixel art. They show off digital photography. They create and present games, some of which are quite famous, including something called Frets on Fire and something that Matt Essig has been keen to point out, Kay Krieger. And I'll give links to that stuff later on. Wild demos, which have no limits. You create the coolest thing you possibly can. And without any constriction on hardware type or method. Then there's the old school demos that run on traditional static hardware like the Commodore 64 or the Amiga. Or they'll put actual restrictions on the demo that you're presenting. So, for example, it might have to fit within 4 kilobytes, the entire demo. Or in Assembly's case, 256 bytes. Imagine writing an entire program that gives you video and audio presentation in only 256 bytes, and other random limitations. More modern demos are doing browser-based demos where you're directly programming HTML5 and you get really complex 3D effects, which is pretty impressive. Music composition, and of course, a live programmed demo competition. People actually sit down in this party and program a demo during that weekend and present it and see who wins. Basically, a fast demo. So I want to talk, and now we're getting to the demo time. So that's preamble, and I'm going to try to keep this short because I know that we're going to run short on time here, but we're getting to the meat of it now. I want you to transport yourself briefly to an earlier time when computers were really limited. Today they're limitless, right? It feels like you can. It's not surprising when you sit down with your laptop and you watch a Netflix movie. But back in the days of the Commodore 64, there were really hard limits on what a computer could do. So this is what the Commodore 64 looks like when you turn it on. And it really had only 2 graphics modes, and they were very restricted. You could do very few things with the hardware. It was hardware limited. You didn't have the ability to break through those hardware limits with software because the hardware was very weak. So, for example, in the Commodore 64, you had 2 graphics modes, text or bitmap. And the bitmap modes were very limited in resolution and the number of colors that you could present. Looking at this screen, this light blue around the edge is called the border. You can set the color of the border, but you cannot put anything in it. That is a hardware limitation until somebody found out that you could break that limit. And they were able to put graphics in the border. Now, that's a hack that was discovered by the demo scene. Another thing that is a limit of the hardware of the Commodore 64 is there are only 8 sprites. And a sprite is a movable graphical object that can move around the screen, right? You can use them as enemies in a game, or like Super Mario. It could be Super Mario himself, but you can only have 8 of them at a time. Any more than that, and sorry, you're out of luck. There's literally 8 sprite hardware modules on the CPU or on the graphics chip, and that's it. The other limits are the resolution of these sprites. You can see this orange sprite right here. That is the normal size of a sprite, and you can stretch it 2 times horizontally, vertically, or both. And you can see they get pretty blocky. So there are a lot of limitations here that kind of make these a demo in the Commodore 64 world ugly. Now, I want to show you a demo that was created by a Swedish coder. He has his own demo group, essentially. He's called LFT, and last year he released a demo called the Mighty Multiplexius. So I'm going to show you some screenshots of it, and then I'm going to play the demo for you. That way you understand why it's impressive. Some of these demos are really flashy, and they look, oh, that looks really cool. This one's looking pretty basic, but if you understood the limitations it's breaking, then you have a better appreciation for what's actually being done. So here's a screenshot. If you take a count here of the number of sprites around the wizard, there are more than 8. So that right there should be impossible. How can you have 9 sprites if there were only 8 hardware sprite circuits? A technique that was developed some time ago was to use something called multiplexing, where as you're drawing the raster lines of the CRT and you finish drawing one of these sprites, you move it somewhere else and draw a different sprite by the time the raster line gets down there. So that's how this effect is possible, given that rasters move from top to bottom. So that's a trick that the Demoscene has made use of for quite some time. And here's another limitation breaker. Notice these sprites are now moving outside of the drawable area of the screen, which we also noted is something that we have figured out how to break. Now, the demo starts to get really crazy at this level. There are now 9 sprites on the same raster line. That should be completely impossible. How do you draw 9 sprites in one raster line? You can't use that multiplexing technique that worked before. And then, of course, the cream on the cake is how do you get all 9 of those essentially sprites in the undrawable part of the screen. So this is just a mind-blowing demo that, like I said, was released last year. And I think it's got a pretty great soundtrack to go along with it. So I'm going to stop the slideshow here and get that demo going. Hang on a second. I think I'm getting some lag on this, and that's not good. Give me a second. I'm going to restart the emulator. It must be running out of memory. My apologies. All right. That is not right. There we go. LFT to see the secrets behind this presentation. He did a wonderful YouTube video. It takes about 25 minutes to watch that unpacks each of the tricks that he used to make the illusion that there were actually sprites in that border region at the top. In fact, there were not. There were a lot of hardware tricks that he made use of that have widely been considered impossible until today. So I'm really passionate about that one. This guy is magic. So next I want to move on to looking at some PC demos. If you want to run that 9 demo, by the way, you can use an emulator, but the most common emulators like Vice can't run it. This makes so much use of obscure, undocumented parts of the Commodore 64 that the only emulator I found that can actually do what we just showed is called JSID Play 2. So if you find JSID Play 2, you can run 9 for yourself or watch it on YouTube if you like. But I particularly like getting the sense of it actually running. That's part of the fun of it. Okay, so next I want to talk about one of the most famous demos ever released. This one came from 1993. I'm not going to play all of these demos because we'd be here for the rest of the day. Some of them are longer. So I'm going to play some of it so you get the sense of what the demo is like, and then I'll fade it out and we'll play the next one. I only have, I think, 3 or 4 left to show you. And hopefully we'll just do a few minutes for each and we'll be done. So first I want to talk about Second Reality. Again, why does it say you need to log in? That doesn't make any sense at all. See, I had all this stage ready to go. All right, this is one of the most famous demos, and I felt that I would be remiss if I didn't show it to you. I want you to keep in mind what computers were like back in 1993. We're talking about maybe 25 megahertz worth of performance, maybe 4 megabytes of RAM. Computers were pretty weak in the PC realm. This was originally designed for running on DOS. They have ported it to Windows, so that's why I'm able to show it to you here. I listened to that soundtrack for many years before realizing it was actually based on a demo. The reason I play the demo that far through is because you'll find echoes of that demo in future demos for decades. The tunnel effect, the moire patterns, a lot of the elements from that demo are really common at the time and are even common in today's kind of as a throwback scene in a lot of demos. So I felt like it was important to show you that one so you're at least familiar with what the second reality is. I'm going to cut out one of the demos I was going to show in the interest of time. So I have two more to show you. The first one is really interesting from an impressive constraint fashion. So I'm gonna start playing this demo. I'm gonna only play a couple, a minute or two of it, and I'll phase out some of the audio and talk about what you're looking at, so you understand why it's so impressive. And of course, I'm sure that my my screen share is going to be messed up again. So give me a second. There. All right. It'll take just a second for it to load and start. So I want to talk a little bit about why what you're looking at is so impressive. The amount of space this demo takes on disk is 4 kilobytes. An empty Microsoft document takes more space than this demo. There's a whole realm of 4K demos, and this is one of the most popular and widely regarded 4K demo of all time. This shows off the mathematical capabilities of the programmers of these demos. Like, that's an astonishing feat to fit so much. Even the flight path that the camera takes through this would take more than 4 kilobytes. All right, and here you can see, of course, on my screen share, I'll move the window so you can see it. I ran the 1080p, 4 kilobytes total size of that file, which I think is just astonishing. The final demo I want to show you is actually an invitation to the Function demo party from 2007. I think it's got an awesome soundtrack. This one might not be rendered. The soundtrack might not be rendered live. It might just be an OGG or MP3. But the actual visuals are really fun to watch. And so I'm going to play this one all the way through. It's just a few minutes, and then I'll do a quick close up, and then we'll be done. All right, so give me just a second to get that one ready. Okay. All right, here we go. I'm sorry to see that the audio is tearing here. I guess trying to emulate x86 on ARM as well as streaming it to YouTube is just a little bit too much at the same time. But yeah, this is one of my favorite demos because it's got some pretty cool visuals. Now, this falls under the kind of the wild demo category where there's really no restrictions on how it's made. It's just meant to look really cool. So it's not necessarily stretching hardware limitations. So as my kind of wrap up here, I have a bunch of links that I'm going to paste into the Teams chat so you can follow up more. There are a few websites that allow you to explore more demos. That would be puet.net and scene.org, where you can take a look at demos that are being produced at today's demo parties, including Assembly, which is still alive and well. And there are results even from 2026 already. Really great stuff to watch there, even some free games that these demo parties produce. Also, I wanted to just briefly touch on what's the future of the demo scene. Like a lot of people say, is the demo scene dead because of how far from the hardware we've been abstracted? Now, I'd say that there's new interest in 8-bit systems in particular. The Commodore company has been purchased by a bunch of enthusiasts, and they're actually producing brand new Commodore 64s. So I think that we're going to see more people developing Commodore 64 demos and getting interested in that platform. The 8-bit guy released the the Commander X16, another 8-bit platform. Lots of new 8-bit computers are being released. So as long as there's interest in systems like that, there are going to be people who are going to try to stretch their limits, which is really what the fun is all about. As long as there's something to show off, somebody's going to want to show it off. And that includes on modern platforms as well. So I don't think the demo scene is dead. I think there's a lot to follow. And I hope I've convinced you to follow it as well. So I will see you back